Okay. All right. Well, so anyway, my talk is going to be called Crypto Consciousness and the Law, and the subtitle is AS after Satoshi. And I like to start things, and just to give you a little background about me, I was back in 2017. I had a friend of mine give a presentation on crypto or Bitcoin at the time, and after I heard the talk, I was so like fired up. I'm like, wow, this is the most unbelievable technology thing I've ever seen in my life. And I had spent a lot of time doing activism online, and it was all very thankless work, and you wouldn't make any money. But I felt like it was a love of what I was doing. And then I found Bitcoin. I'm like, wow, now here's a way I can actually make money on using the internet. And so I bought some of these Bitcoins, and then put an ad up on local Bitcoins. And a few days later, someone called me up and said, hey, or texted me or emailed me or whatever. And hey, I want to buy those Bitcoins. And like, okay, we met them, and I made some profit on the trade. And then I had to go buy some more Bitcoins. And then I just kept on doing that over and over and over and over again. Started with $600, and eventually they took me down for $100,000 at a Starbucks on Scottsdale Road and the 101. The undercover agents came to me and said, "Oh, this money comes from drugs." And I'm like, "Well, I don't care. I'm not in that business. I'm in the Bitcoin business." And even though I well knew better, uh, I chose to make those trades, and that caused me a severe change of plans in my life. But all in all, even with all that happening, I was able to take that experience and turn it into a positive. And if you can take whatever life throws at you and turn it into a positive, and if you can take prison and turn it into a positive, well, then you can turn anything into a positive. And I still have the music playing inside my head, and even though I have some challenges I have to deal with, I feel like I'm still they gave me a gift as opposed to taking something away. And even if just quitting smoking, because that's one of the things I was able to do while I was a good smoke. But I wasn't like a big smoker, but I still would smoke occasionally, and I know it was affecting my health. And so by eliminating smoking, I feel like I'm gotten at least 30 months out of the end of my life, or at least, even if I don't get 30 more months out of it, I'll have 30 months worth of much better living than I would have had I not quit smoking. Anyway, so I like to start off my presentation with a joke here. And once was this guy went out with his friends camping, and while he was out camping, he wandered away from the group and got lost. While he was attempting to find his way back, he wandered into a cave, and in that cave he found a magic lamp. Well, he didn't know it was a magic lamp, but he rubbed it anyway. And as he rubbed the lamp, poof, out of the lamp popped this huge genie. And the genie says in a loud voice, "Yes, master, I am the genie of the lamp." The guy says, "Oh, great, now I get 3 wishes." And the genie says, "No, master, we don't have that No, master, we don't have that program anymore." So the guy says, "Oh, what kind of program do you have now?" And the genie says, "Oh, we get to choose from infinite intelligence and $100 million. I suggest you choose wisely." The guy sits down on a rock and finally says, "I'll take the infinite intelligence, please." Well, the genie waves his hands, and here's a poof, and then you now have infinite intelligence, and then he disappears. Well, the guy feels kind of weird, wanders out of the cave, and he finds his friends, and he tells them about the story about the cave and the lamp and the genie and how he gave him an infinite intelligence. So his friends say to him, "Give us some of that infinite intelligence." So the guy sits down on a rock and thinks for a moment and slacks his hand on his head and goes, "I should have taken the $100 million." So anyway, that's kind of like where we're at. So recorded history has had 2 major epochs or eras thus far. The first known as BC, meaning before Christ, and the second is AD, meaning Anno Domini, as the medieval Latin means the year of the Lord. The secular names for these periods are BCE and CE, meaning before Common Era and Common Era. These periods revolve around the mythical stories of Jesus of Nazareth. It's foolish to believe, though, that the people who lived in the BCE era counted their years down to the birth of Christ, when in fact, according to the Hebrew calendar, CE1 was 3761. Now, according to the book, The Islamic Jesus, the author, Mustafa Ikol, makes the statement that the major difference between the religions of the BC era and the AD era is the end of blood sacrifice. People were constantly killing animals and people to satisfy the psychopathic needs of whatever brand of God they were told to worship. People were steeped in superstition. Gradually over time, people realized they didn't need to participate in these, when they didn't participate in these barbaric acts, nothing would happen. Then slowly they started to realize that being able to read and do mathematics and following the principles of science, their lives became easier and more comfortable and their standards of living increased. There are many billions of people today that are better off than the kings of old. As more and more people continue to throw off the superstitions of our parents, teachers, preachers, and other caregivers were given to us as part of our auto-domestication since the time we were born, life on this planet will continue to improve. Humanity has been successful in solving all the problems that it has faced thus far. However, the challenges that humanity faces are continuing to increase in complexity as well. To solve those challenges, new ways of thinking and better machines need to be established. As Albert Einstein said, the solution to any problem can never come from the same level of consciousness that created the problem in the first place. Necessity is the mother of invention, and I bet that humanity will continue to innovate, and that innovation will continue to accelerate as well. Necessity is one of the reasons that Satoshi Nakamoto may have created Bitcoin in the first place. There's a message inscribed in the Genesis block. The Times, 03 January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for the banks. It seems obvious that he was concerned about the global banking crisis that was underway at that time. That may have been one of his reasons to create Bitcoin in the first place. It is well known that all fiat money systems are eventually returned to their true value of zero. It just takes some more time to do it than others. Bitcoin may have been a solution for breaking away from the fiat money system. Now, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. This is Buckminster Fuller. Now, the banks have had a monopoly on the money system, and this allows them, with the stroke of a pen or a few keystrokes, to create or debase the money system as much as they want. Now, the modern economy needs constant and infinite growth in order to survive. If growth ever stops, the economy won't settle down to a cozy equilibrium. It will fall to pieces. And this is Yuval Harari in the book Homo Deus. Our world runs on economic growth. One of the reasons the Federal Reserve was created was to have an elastic money supply. And wow, is it ever elastic, with the federal debt ballooning to $27 trillion. Many people complain about it, but no one has the chutzpah to do anything about it. Some people talk about auditing the Fed, but isn't likely it will ever happen or even make a difference. Back when the economy was created in 2009, when the Federal Reserve was created in 2019, all dollars were backed by gold or silver. Because the economy was growing faster than gold and silver supplies, it caused shortages of money, and sometimes there was a run on the bank. Banks could make banknotes, but that were redeemable in gold and silver. But if everyone wanted to get their gold and silver out of the bank, then whoever was left holding those banknotes would be worthless, because the banks printed more banknotes than gold and silver to back it. Isn't it amazing that the Federal Reserve Act and the 16th Amendment to the Constitution, the one that established income tax, were both passed in the same year of 1913 under very suspicious conditions? With these negotiable instruments called notes, think Federal Reserve note, is a debt instrument created by a loan of some kind. The principle of a loan is created out of a signature. It must be paid back, but the interest can never be paid back. It's actually impossible to pay it back. Consider a loan on a home for $250,000 for 30 years at a 3% rate. The payment will be about $1,000 per month. The total of the payments will be about $380,000 is paid by the end of the loan. The principle created out of thin air is by signing a mortgage document through the banking system. But the extra $130,000, how does that get created? The answer is simple. More loans need to get created for those funds to appear so they can be paid. This is why the debt keeps increasing and the fiat money system is doomed to fail. Now is the time, no pun intended, to start regarding the time we now live in as AS or AN, meaning after Satoshi or after Nakamoto. We are now living in the future. And now that we are living in the future, or AS, all possibilities are open to humanity. Think about how much life has changed in the last 300 years. Just imagine how difficult life would be without what would we now consider to be the basics: electricity, refrigeration, mechanized transport. Just a short 300 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution, all work was done by hand or from the muscle of an animal, from tilling the land to building anything. No refrigeration. If you wanted to go somewhere, it was on foot or on animal or a sailing ship with no refrigeration either. No electricity, no phones, no radio, internet, cars, trains, or planes, no running water, no light bulbs. Cotton was picked by hand by slaves, and all clothing was made by hand. Doctors used bloodletting to cure diseases. Today, 2021, almost everyone has a supercomputer in their hand that can access all the libraries of almost all the information in the world instantly. These supercomputers or cell phones can now be used to perform multiple functions like listening to music, acting as a flashlight, an alarm clock, checking bank balances, or in case of crypto commodities, actually acting as a bank. When I was younger, my friends and I would plan trips to the library and to research whatever we were interested in. We used this anachronistic system called the Dewey Decimal System to look up books with the information desired. You looked at the subject and wanted in the card catalog, and then you took a look in the number shelves in the library. Today, almost all information can be delivered in a simple Google search. Hang on one second. Sorry about that, a little noise situation. Back then, there were 4 stations on my parents' black and white television. My father would bring home the paper, which he called the nuisance paper. My brothers and I would attack him for the paper to find out how the Mets did and what the box scores were. We listened to the Mets on an AM-only radio. My mother didn't want a telephone in the house, so to use the phone, we would go down to the street to a store or corner where the payphones were installed, many of which were rotary dialed to make a call. We wrote and received letters as they were less expensive than using the phone. My father was a part owner of a machine shop that had lathes, milling machines, drill presses, and grinders. All but 2 of them were hand operated, not like today where all machine tools are CNC controlled. Today, we are now living in the age of computers, which were built on the backbone of the Industrial Revolution. Just like all inventions, we didn't always have them, but because they've become so ubiquitous, it's hard to imagine life without them. Think of a simple invention, the chair, for example. Someone had to imagine a device that one could sit on instead of a rock and make much more comfortable and easier to move around. At first, they were made by hand. Then machines were created to make those chair parts, and other furniture was invented. As we kept moving forward, we desired more machines, ones that could make the machines that could make the parts of the chair. More power was needed to make the machines that could churn out any type of thing a person could want to make life easier. Wind, hydro, and animal power was first used. Then steam power was discovered and then was used to power those machines. After that came electricity, another machine that was discovered and became possible to use this new energy source to power all these machines that made life even easier and more enjoyable for the masses. Well, what is a machine? John David Garcia, in his seminal book, Creative Transformation, describes a machine as any device that increases intelligence. He also describes what intelligence is. Intelligence is the ability to predict and control things in the 3-dimensional world. Using this definition, words are a machine, math and numbers are a machine. Steam power, electricity, and computer code are machines because these machines allow us to predict and control things in the real world. Therefore, banks, organized religion, and government are also machines. This particular machine is known as the Borg for banks, organized religion, and government. The difference between words, math, computer code machines, and the Borg machines is the Borg uses force to manipulate humanity, and almost all other machines are used with persuasion and voluntary interaction. When we believe in truth, that allows us to make better decisions. When we believe in falsehood, we make terrible decisions. In other words, the very nature of truth is that believing in truth, the truth of true information, increases our intelligence, while believing false information to be true diminishes our intelligence. The solution to this conundrum lies in achieving a more common understanding of this fact. This logically means that humanity is much more likely to thrive as more of us become able to think to an outcome with the Borg is diametrically opposed to. One of the critical junctions of humanity is when humans were able to create writing and math. With it came another machine called money. The first money that was created in the form of something that had intrinsic value. Money was first invented in Sumeria around 3000 BC. The machine that solved this machine solved the challenge of intensifying economic activities. The most common measurement was known as the sila of barley, equal to about a liter. The sila was a standardized bowl that was mass produced. People learned to trade the standard measurement for other things that they desired, like oats or goats, oil, slaves, or something else to eat besides barley. People didn't have to trust it because they could eat it, but it was difficult to store and transport. Then about 2,500 years ago, a breakthrough occurred. People gained trust in money that lacked intrinsic value, and that was the silver shekel. The silver shekel, unlike barley, had no inherent value. You can't eat, drink, clothe, or build a house in silver. You can't make any useful tools or nails with it. The items that can be made with it are luxury items that identify the owner of high social status. Because people, and I won't name one of them, believe that money has to have an intrinsic value to have any value, just because some precious metals are pretty and luxury items can be made from them doesn't mean doesn't give them an intrinsic value. What makes them value is they have to solve some kind of problem that people have. The value is determined by the law of supply and demand, or in other words, scarcity. Money does solve a problem, and that is how to allocate scarce resources. Money is the highest point of human tolerance. Money is more accepted and non-judgmental than language, state laws, cultural codes, religious beliefs, and social habits. Money is a trust system created by humans that can bridge almost any cultural gap. That does not discriminate based on religion, gender, race, age, or sexual orientation. As people do business, they learn to trust each other. When goods don't cross borders, soldiers will, wrote Frederick Bastiat. Today, the world GNP is about 89 trillion, but the total of coins and banknotes in circulation is less than 6 trillion. More than 90% of all fiat money exists in electronic files somewhere. Most business transactions are executed by moving electronic data from one file to another without exchanging physical cash. Bitcoin is the next evolution in money, as it performs the same functions as fiat money, plus it cannot be censored by a government or bank. Any amount can be sent to anyone else, anywhere in the world, without a third party. And because the model is built on increasing scarcity, it tends to increase in value against the unlimited dilution of fiat currency. The next step is like the step when people move from the barley sila to the silver shekel. This will be another cultural one as humanity moves from fiat money to crypto. The total market cap for all crypto is about $2 trillion, or about 2.2% of the world GNP. The little experiment that Satoshi created had a market cap of $25 on May 22nd, 2010. 11 years later, the total market cap crossed $1 trillion on January 6, 2021. And then just 93 days later, on April 9th, 2021, it crossed 2 trillion. Not to say that the market cap is the end all be all to all things crypto, but it does get people really excited. Now that we have Bitcoin and other crypto commodities, one human being can transmit value to any other human being outside the money system without being censored by any bank or government. For the first time in history, we have a global free market. Money makes it possible to have the industrial age, and crypto makes it possible to live in the future. Just like Jesus, Satoshi is a mythical character. Satoshi has never been positively identified. No one ever heard of Satoshi before his arrival on the scene on August 22nd, 2008, in an email to Be Money Creator, We Die. Satoshi's final verified email was on Gavin Andresen on April 26, 2011, meaning his ministry also lasted around 3 years. When Satoshi mined a Genesis block 4,480 days, 5 hours, and 30 minutes ago for the Bitcoin blockchain on January 8th, 2009 at 7:54 p.m., he brought humanity into a new age. This was the culmination of the advances that began with the Industrial Revolution. Now with the rise of blockchain, we are told the possibility of doing all kinds of things that make life better for more people that do not involve the board and force-led manipulation. Now, of course, governments are seeing the value of blockchain, and so they are getting involved as well, not necessarily for the betterment of humanity. They are wanting to sell us the value of using this technology under their control. They have this option. However, they must compete on an equal footing with the marketplace for what the public really wants and not what the board wants us to have. The government can at any time change whatever rules they want without any real feedback from the population. For example, at one time, alcohol was legal, then made illegal during Prohibition in 1920, then in 1933 made legal again. Cannabis was once legal, then made illegal. Now state by state is making it legal again. Now, these are all the whims of government political actors and the interests that support them. With Bitcoin being a consensus-based program, rules are very difficult to change. Someone cannot just unilaterally decide what the new rules for the game are. Everybody plays from the same rules. A transvestite from the Congo plays from the same rules as Elon Musk. A 15-year-old who knows the keys to their wallet can transact with anyone they want to without any permission from banks or government. Bitcoin doesn't care if you're black, white, rich, poor, male, female. Everyone plays by the same rules. With Bitcoin, possession of the private keys is not 9/10 of the law, it is the law. Bitcoin places financial sovereignty over all else. To have political sovereignty, one must have financial sovereignty first, because if you can't feed yourself like the people in Venezuela, you're going to give up your vote to whoever promised to feed you. With Bitcoin, there are only two ways to get it. You either have to mine it or get it from somebody who has it. The mining process takes work. Only now we are living in the future, so we use robots to do the work. To get it from someone that has it, it takes giving someone something of value to get the crypto. No creating it out of thin air like the bankers do it. With the fiat money system going the way of the dodo bird, most countries rely on to control their populations. Governments are going to have to become more efficient. Perhaps they'll have to only enforce laws whereas they're an actual victim. Every other sector of humanity has had to improve since the beginning of the industrial age and become more efficient or go out of business. Governments are going to have to become more efficient or they're going to be left to the wayside as well. One of the awareness that comes to people when they do peer-to-peer transactions with Bitcoin is why do I need these banks and government for anyway? Voluntary interaction is so much better than fraud or force. What happens when fiat money becomes so diluted that anyone wants to use it anymore? Before we had crypto, this was not a real concern for banks and government. They would just print more of it. Because they have a monopoly, there wasn't everything else to switch to. As more and more switch to crypto, whoever's holding the fiat money won't be very created. Most of the rules of government makes are about who is going to get the money that they take from everybody in the form of taxes. And make no mistake about it, inflation is a tax. When you are working as an employee, the government conveniently gets to get their fair share before you get yours. The government is the third party in almost all economic transactions. By writing the rules that favor big business and the rich, they keep most people broke. This is the way they create artificial scarcity so that people will keep fighting with each other and breaking laws. This way, they have to continue to insert themselves as referees that perpetuate the masses' needs for them and continue to increase the size of government with more and more laws, police, lawyers, judges, jailers, and most importantly, inmates. All businesses have to find new customers and service the ones they have. This is one of the reasons why the prison populations keep expanding. They're just servicing their repeat customers. Now that we are living in the new era of AS, the board will continue to fight back. They may continue to create new cryptos that compete with the decentralized models. One of the non-decentralized coins is XRP. I do not like XRP because it is semi-centralized with the validation of transactions. I am not a Bitcoin maximalist. I am a decentralization maximalist. Copying is the validation that any concept is a good one. Think of the breakfast cereals that how many brands and types there are. You don't need to force to promote a good or great idea. You don't need to should on anyone to do anything that is a good idea either. I really dislike the word should. To me, it's like a backhanded order. Whenever somebody tells me I should do this or should do that, I tell them, don't should on me and I won't should on you. The government shoulds on us all the time. They have all kinds of regulations that we, the people, now have to live our life by, but those regulations do not apply to them. Let's take airplanes, for example. They have all kinds of noise level limits, but the military planes, they don't have to comply with those levels. They set for everyone else. Another good one is the government sets a minimum wage that forces businesses to employ people at a certain hourly wage. Where did the government get the right to do this? Don't we have the unlimited right to contract or not contract? Why do I have to be in contract with the government to survive? Now the government forces businesses to pay these minimum wages. If this is so important to the government, then let the businesses pay what they think is a fair wage and let the government kick in the rest. Oh yeah, but we live in a capitalist society and that would be communism. Oh my gosh. How is forcing businesses to pay people a certain wage, not communism? On the other hand, I believe that the government has the right to dictate minimum wage, but only for government jobs. That's their domain. The free market is not their domain. If it is their domain, how could it possibly be called free? The other case is the 2.2 million people that are incarcerated. For those people, the government doesn't have to pay them minimum wage at all. They can pay them whatever they want, like 10 cents an hour. And in 5 states, they don't have to pay inmates anything at all. Good ideas need to get promoted. When a friend of mine, Big Kahuna Brad, gave a presentation about Bitcoin to a group of our mutual friends, I heard the word Bitcoin before, but I never bothered to look it up. At that presentation, one thing was clear to me: I had to get some Bitcoin, and I did, and placed an ad on local Bitcoins and what to do, and you know how to do what to do a few days later. I had someone buy them from me, and I sold them and made a profit and had to get more. I kept on going doing that over and over till a year later I quit my job. 3 years later, I had undercover agents buying Bitcoin from me, and they told me that the money came from drugs, even though there was no drugs involved, because the money laundering laws, sting laws, they were able to find me guilty. I told them I didn't care, and I took the money. And after doing several deals with them, I was arrested and ended up being incarcerated for 30 months. I knew better. I really did. I let my love of this technology, my greed, and my loathing for the government cloud my judgment, and I took the bait. They took me down for 80 Bitcoins. Now I have a federal felony on my record. But while I was sitting in the federal detention center in Florence, Arizona, they had a book cart with about 50 books on it, and that cart had about 2 weeks into my incarceration, I found a book that transformed my life in the most amazing way possible. The title of that book was the Bible. And actually, the book's title is How to Transform Your Life by Geshe Kelsang Gatso. The book is about Tibetan Buddhism and how to use Buddhism to transform one's life. I was a bit of a rough spot at that time, staring down 10 years in a federal prison. And the book stayed quite profoundly in the very beginning. Before the introduction were the words which I underlined. Sincere spiritual practitioners can make good use of whatever circumstances that arise in their daily life. Whoa, that's some pretty deep stuff. So I kept on reading. Every living being has the same basic wish to be happy and avoid suffering. Since the world evolved, human beings have spent almost all their time and energy improving external conditions in their search for happiness and the solution to their problems. What has been the result? Instead of their wishes being fulfilled, human suffering and problems have continued to increase, and the experience happiness and peace is decreasing. I continued to read the book and reread it 3 times. I had the opportunity to read about 300 books while I was incarcerated on a variety of subjects, but the most fascinating ones were the ones I found on Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhism is a path of enlightenment and happiness. To be happy, one has to study the one thing we can all agree exists, the mind. Even if we're all living in a little dream, the mind and consciousness the fact that the mind and consciousness do exist is undeniable. One of the basic ideas is the same one as in science, and that is the concept of cause and effect. Only the Buddhists apply it to the mind and happiness. To be happy, think, speak, and act in ways that are positive and bring joy to your life and everyone you meet. To understand the mind, you must exercise it with an exercise called meditation. Think of it as a meeting with yourself. We're having meetings all day with different people. Why not have a meeting with the most important person in your life, yourself? You can start wherever you're at. You don't have to take a special posture. You can sit in a chair if you like. However, if you want to sit on a pillow so it tips your hips forward and keeps your back straight, that's even better. Take 2 minutes, then to meditate. Then, as your mind becomes less agitated, you can increase the time. I took I took the 30 months of the government-funded spiritual retreat the 30 months as a government-funded spiritual retreat. In that environment, I was able to install some new software in my mind. A big part is doing meditation the first thing every day. It's the most important part of my life. Yes, I paid a heavy price for doing Bitcoin trades with the undercover agents. However, I did receive a greater benefit than the loss of the 80 Bitcoins in the 30 months being locked up. Through Tibetan Buddhism, I have released my anger towards the government and become so much happier now. I am at peace with myself and can see one thing that was missing in my life was Tibetan Buddhism. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries the seed of an equal or greater benefit, Napoleon Hill. It wasn't that long ago that people did not brush their teeth, and when they got older, their teeth just fell out of their heads. Now we know that brushing your teeth allows you to keep your teeth longer. The same can be said about the effects of meditation. The clinical effects of meditation are many. Reduces stress, controls anxiety, promotes emotional health, enhances self-awareness, lengthens attention span, may reduce age-related memory loss, can generate kindness, and may help fight addictions. Even though it was a bitter pill, learning about Tibetan Buddhism and probing the recesses of my mind is even worth more than a wish-fulfilling jewel or 80 Bitcoins. The journey with crypto is a long one, and I'm still have the music playing in my head. For those of you who think you've missed a boat, and we are still scratching the surface of this era we know as AS, after Satoshi. That's it. Hello.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Morpheus.